please welcome to the stage Diana Newman from Shopify Plus, Shalini Solomon from Verizon Media, Rita Zahir from The Giving Keys, James Simpson from Dot Digital. Ladies and gentlemen, please give them a round of applause.
I am Diana. I work at Shopify, which if any of you haven't heard of Shopify, we're an e-commerce platform. I work for the Shopify Plus team, and I work on our large merchant customer base. So I work on all of our largest accounts on the West Coast. I'd love if we could just all introduce ourselves and kind of where we're from and why we're here, and then we can jump into it.
I'm Shalini Solomon. I work for Verizon Media as a senior manager for Demand Gen, which is basically all of the paid advertising that we do online. And I'm here because I've actually worked with DCKAP with 3 different companies prior to this one over the last 7 to 8 years.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining.
Hi, I'm Rita Zahir. I'm the VP of Marketing and e-commerce for a fashion brand called The Giving Keys. And I run every aspect of the e-commerce business, including acquisition and retention marketing and everything that runs online. And we work very closely with Shopify Plus.
Hi, I'm James Simpson. I'm a solutions partner manager for Dot Digital. Dot Digital is a marketing automation platform. So I look after our partnerships with DCKAP on the agency side, all of our large e-commerce partners such as Shopify. So the format of this panel is a couple of wonderful client examples in the middle and 2 technology vendors on the outside. Who knows what's going to happen? Let's check it out.
Yeah, it's going to be a wild time up here. Originally, we were thinking it would just be merchants, but now we have both perspectives, so I'm actually really lucky. I feel really lucky to have a bit of a mixed bag up here. And I know it's the end of the day, so we'll try to get you out there. And I'm looking at my phone because I do have some notes. I'm not texting, so just in case any of you were wondering. All right, so the biggest thing I wanted to talk about or kick things off with is when you think about your customer experience, what are you most proud of? And I feel like this one's probably for you, Rita, with knowing that you have a big customer base, but I'd love to hear kind of merchant examples or even at Verizon or Dot Digital, how you guys think about your customer experience and some of those really proud moments with them.
So our company has 2 kind of angles. One is that it's supposed to be very inspirational, jewelry and accessories. So there's a pay it forward aspect of once you receive something, if you meet someone that needs it more than you, that you're supposed to pay it forward. So a big piece that we do with our customers is really encouraging them to share their stories. And when we speak to stories that are powerful and engaging, I mean, people send us thousands of pay it forward stories a year, and they range from deaths in the family to struggling through divorce and new marriages and things like that. So those stories and sharing them and empowering people to share them have been really successful for us. And then on the other side, we're also a social impact company. So what we are working towards is using employment to transition people out of homelessness. So our production team, our QA team, people who work in the one little store that we have, people who package our jewelry, etc., are all people who are transitioning out of homelessness or have recently transitioned out of homelessness. And sharing their stories, incredibly powerful, and our customers just love the idea of not just buying something, but becoming part of a mission. So that's been successful for us.
I love that. I feel like I'm a super fan of what you do because giving keys, you give a key to another person, but you also help support transition people out of homelessness, which is so incredible. It's a really amazing mission. So I was excited that you're here. You kind of touched on it a little bit, and by telling those customer stories, you're helping to attract new customers. But I'd love to hear, like, you lead Demand Gen, and you work with customers across a number of different industries. So I'd love to hear from all of you. I constantly hear that new customer acquisition is getting harder and harder and harder, and we have to think about, our retention and really focus more on retention, because it's just the cost to acquire is becoming bigger and bigger. I'd love to hear from you about how you're driving new customer acquisition. And any of you can pop in. Please don't feel like we have to go down the line. Pop in whenever you want.
Well, the key to everything really is planning and strategy. What we find is if we don't know our customers, we really don't know how to talk to them, and we don't know how to connect with them, and we don't know where they are. I mean, if you don't know your customer, then you're not going to be able to find your way into their domain, whether that's online, at a conference, if it's at a trade show of some sort. For example, when at the previous company, we sold planners. Not really exciting product, How do you make planners sexy? Like, you can't. But you can definitely find your audience. And if anyone here knows planners at all, there's a huge industry of people who love planners, and they're crazy about it. And they have shows where people, literally it's called Go Wild, and you walk in there, and if you can connect with your audience in that moment, they're with you for life. So it's really connecting with your audience and planning your strategy around your customer with a full focus. I know there are a lot of people that spoke today, and that was a really core part of what we heard was your customer is the key to your success.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, sure. I can speak to that a little bit as well. I can give you the angle of the consultancy and what we asked, provide consultancy to our clients around how to achieve this goal. But the interesting thing about .digital is if I speak about how we're doing it as a business, Steve, who I believe you heard speak earlier, in our consultation team last year actually put our entire marketing department through our own consultancy package to see what types of mistakes they were making, which was incredibly interesting because, believe it or not, a lot of the things that we tell our clients to do, we weren't doing ourselves, which is really interesting. And some of the biggest and key things that came up is there are a couple of times when people really value their customers. That's when you first acquire them. So when they first come through the door, most people do a lot of stuff there. You'll send them a coupon or you'll send them some information. You really value them at that point. Then you kind of just put them on the back burner. You might check in with them, newsletter every now and then, nothing really that's increasing their experience. And then when a big important date where you've got to push higher metrics like a Black Friday or the holiday period comes around, you expect them to buy from you real quickly. That was, a lot of it, that's a really common theme that we see right throughout it. And the problem with that is trying to monetize customers on those days is when it's the busiest possible time of year. It's like trying to ask somebody on a date on New Year's Eve. Nobody's going with you. They're busy. There's a lot happening. So the key really is using your touch points. Again, Steve touched on this earlier. Using your touch points to enhance your customer's experience, not further your own agenda. So it's when you communicate with them, how can you add them some value? So if you're in B2B services like we are, start providing free tips that you don't charge for. Start providing information about how to maximize your product that isn't monetized. I think if you're in the B2C aspect, that's an easy thing as well. You can provide cool and interesting content that your customers that aren't just monetary. It isn't just buy from me right now. It's how to create that. Taking that angle will enrich your customer's opinion and value of your brand, and you'll stop thinking, right, well, I'll give them a 20% discount at the holidays when everybody else on their mailing list is also doing that.
I think if I just add one thing, I would work off of what you were saying and saying, understanding not just the value of your customer, but your different customer segments, and that they can be wildly different. And what we try to do is really understand the lifetime value of different customer segments and what are the predictive characteristics. So how do I know what category you fit in so I can decide how much I want to spend acquiring you and what's the best way to retain you. Because in some cases on that first sale, we definitely lose money, but we know that we're building a relationship with a customer that's going to continue to buy with us on a regular cadence, and we will eventually make money. But in some cases, we'll never make money on a certain segment of customer that shops basically for certain items at certain prices, and then we will make sure that first ROAS on that first sale is positive.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you. It actually goes very nicely into my next question about, so we think about the customer lifetime value, and you're talking about, creating this different segmentation in order to maybe treat these customers differently. What are you doing to create more loyalty across your customer base, and how do you keep them engaged along the customer journey? And I think this is going to be relevant to you across your different 3 experiences, and it will probably be relevant into what are your customers doing, James? Like, what does Digital help their customers do from a retention and loyalty perspective, and how are some of those actions helping to grow their business?
Yeah, absolutely. So the largest thing that we encourage from a loyalty and retention aspect, again, I think is feeding back into the thing that I was just talking about, which is considering what is going to increase your customer's experience rather than further your own agendas. That's what the crux of it. That's the main point of it. And some of the stuff that we considered, and if you look at segmentation of things, a lot of people will segment their customers based on monetary aspects. So who makes me the most money? Who do I want to make me more money? But you can start considering your customers based on engagement with your brand. You can start considering them from an educational point of view. So who are my newest customers? Who needs educating about my services and how I can help them? Who's already aware of that, so they need less education, and therefore we can talk about more candid things, like monetary aspects. Considering those slightly out of the box things from a customer's perspective, rather from your own sort of profit and loss sheet, is a really interesting way and a really, really useful way to build customer loyalty, both in a B2B space and in a B2C space. It's really just human psychology more so than any strategy-based aspect.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about segmentation, like you said, it's not just about who's going to give me the most money. One stat I like to use all the time is it costs 6 times more money to get a new person, a new customer, than it does to keep the one you already have. So why not take that and really, boost that much higher? A couple things that we've done in the past is really engaging with the audience by bringing ourselves out. The planner company we worked at wasn't run by one person, right? It was a family. So bringing the aspects out of the family and letting them learn more about them gave people this feeling of belonging. It created loyalty, and it allowed them to feel like they were part of something that was bigger than just, I bought this planner at this company and it was cool. I worked at a ballistics company where we did bulletproof vests and helmets. I never worked in the same industry twice, so none of my stories will match. But we did a cool video where, in order to really showcase the product, this was probably illegal, but I had our owner shoot a guy in the chest wearing his bulletproof vest. And we did a really fancy video around that at a shooting range. So, but that video was awesome. Like, it did so great, and it really brought people to our website, and it engaged with our audience because that's what they wanted to see. Like, how does your product function? How does it work? And at the same time, how does that apply to me? Well, getting shot in the chest 10 times at very close range and living to tell that tale is pretty cool if you're about to buy that vest. So just really engaging with the audience, and when it comes to that segmentation, is learning where they land on that segmentation. So if they're into vests, for that example, versus gun parts, know who you're selling to and what you're selling to them. And it's not just about the selling point either. Create content that's free. You don't necessarily have to, create the best bulletproof vest, but if you have a bulletproof vest and then some really great statistics or a white paper, now I'm talking B2B here a little bit, but something that you can even post on social, you're not paying for that. You're going to get so much more in return because those people feel like they understand you understand your product better.
I think drawing on those emotive experiences and thinking about specifically what customers want and when. We were talking with the Partsology team earlier about what their customer journey map looks like across their B2B versus their B2C or direct to consumer market. And I think that if we understand what our customers' needs and wants at those specific key milestones, we can better anticipate how we might be able to help them. And so I think, it really speaks to what James and what you were saying as well, is like we just need to be really specific about understanding our customers and their needs at those specific times. And that's how you plan on creating loyalty, which I think is really powerful.
A super easy one just for you guys as a little takeaway. We provide something, I always suggest something called the paperclip test, which is all of you will get asked pretty regularly. We get asked it as technology vendors outside, like what differentiates you from your competition? Everybody's used to answering that question. And if you can answer that really well, then that's a great shout to the product team, perhaps to the commercial team who've created a great price point. But the paperclip test is about, imagine I sell paperclips and everybody on here sells paperclips. There is no difference. You can't buy, maybe you can, but it's unlikely you can buy better quality paperclips. So imagine we all do that. How are we going to create loyalty? And that is when you come down to start talking about great marketing. Is thinking there's no big differentiator there. We've got to think outside the box to get cool campaigns that engage people when we're not just leaning on our product. Anybody who takes that test usually will improve and start to think about their marketing totally differently.
Do you want to share, Rita?
I like that story because I think it really speaks to understanding. Everyone keeps talking about Amazon and why it's such a threat and how brands can compete with it. And when you talk about loyalty and building engagement, that's what I think is the differentiating point, is saying your brand voice, the experience that people have buying from you is more than just the product they receive. And that's probably the only way that some of these e-commerce brands are going to be able to continue to compete against somebody like Amazon.
Yeah, and I think like we've heard about Amazon a couple of times. They represent 50% of total revenue in this e-commerce landscape. And I think one of the things that the Shopify team really likes to understand, or at least cultivate, is a community around our merchants so that we can share learnings, best practices, but we can also share our frustrations. Like there's big roadblocks in developing, a big, complex e-commerce business. There's no perfect way to do it, and everyone's doing it differently. And there isn't a school that we all went to learn how to do it. So we've been building and doing a lot more community engagement around kind of what's working, what's not working. And I would love to hear from you about, what your biggest roadblocks or challenges are as a business, e-com or not, but I'd just love to hear about some of your challenges that you're facing today. I don't know who wants to go first.
For us, it's resources. Just being able to create that content to engage with your customer, it takes people. It takes a lot of people to put some of that together. And it takes time. So B2B speaking, we're creating white papers or we're creating editorials. Someone's got to write that and put that information together and do the research. And it really just comes down to resources.
I think that resources is always something. I mean, we're a pretty lean team. But for us, some of the bigger things are attribution. Multi-touch attribution as it's been evolving, and really understanding the effects on your overall channel when you add in a new and emerging channel, like what's happening to your media mix and what's really driving powerful engagements and conversions throughout the funnel. So I think that piece is really been a challenge for us that we're trying to tackle. We're trying to tackle delivering a more personalized experience, leveraging data to really say what touch points do you need different messaging, and what identifies you to say where you are in the funnel, not just where you actually are on the page. So those have been some technology issues that we're trying to tackle and kind of get to the next stage of.
Yeah, we've had a really interesting year for this. We commissioned we have about 8,000 clients in 80 different countries around the world, and we commissioned a study to 2,000 of existing clients, asking them what that noise is. No, asking them what challenges they had in using our platform, getting the most out of our platform. 60% of people came back and said time, 40% of people came back and said resource. So what that actually led for us as a SaaS business in developing our platform is we've focused this year, and as a SaaS business, we've always been about release new features, right? And this probably resonates for most people and most businesses, like release new things, get newer ideas. What we found when we looked at platform user adoption is most of the clients we have aren't using most of the stuff we've got already. So releasing new things, like what new channel can I launch? What new marketing activity can I do? A better activity or a more fruitful activity is pretty often looking over what you're already doing and seeing, can you make it better? Our most successful clients are the people who do a little amount of things really well, rather than considering, can I be active in all social media platforms, have a great email campaign, do all of this, great e-com site, do B2B, can I have like a great bricks and mortar store? Consideration is what can you get done quickly, and make sure that you test so that what you do well, you do it really well.
Yeah, I feel like we've been talking a lot about like how you can be innovative and how you can drive more innovation and more growth. But I think paring some of that innovation down to assessing kind of all of the systems that you have and how you can simplify some of those systems to better work together is actually a really great point. I really wanted to talk about like how your teams are driving innovation, but I actually think we'll not do that because I feel like it's really true. Like we live in this crazy world of so much complexity, and we have a hard time. And there's so many different tools that we integrate with, and maybe it would just be easier if we took a look at those systems and looked at the duplication that those systems are doing and started simplifying some of our workflows. One of the things that we talk about a lot at Shopify, and I've been talking with a lot of my large merchants about is expanding globally, and this might be more for you, Rita, than the two on the side, but we've been talking about, even Singles Day. I don't know if anyone saw the ridiculous statistics of Singles Day, but they did $1 billion in the first 68 seconds. If we think about how Black Friday might compare to that, it is such a small piece of the total vault revenue from either Singles Day and Black Friday combined. I think it's incredible that a lot of my merchants are not focused on Singles Day and haven't been capitalizing on it. So I think from an international growth perspective, like, what are you guys considering? And have you considered engaging in Singles Day at all, or into that market too?
Yeah, well, this year's holiday, because Black Friday falls so late in the month, is 6 days shorter. So we kept thinking, what can we do to start it earlier? What other markets can we go in that are not so Black Friday focused and such a short shopping period? So we started talking about not only Singles Day, but also Boxing Day. We just, very lean on the resources right now in terms of expanding what we're doing in other countries. So what we're looking for is places where we can outsource and do fast growth and then scale either in-house or continue to use external resources.
Correct. Thanks for sharing. And do you guys have customers, or have you had experience growing into other markets as a way to account for growth? Or have you traditionally done most of your business within North America?
Primarily, it's been North America.
Yeah.
I think at Verizon, we're global. So it is global, but it's done so differently. Everything that I work on the global scale is done through sponsorships, which is like magazines or online ads and things like that. So for e-commerce, that's not always the best route. But for the B2B world, and it kind of goes back to segmentation, just knowing where your customers are, that's where we're trying to sell.
Awesome.
So kind of flips to that.
Yeah. We were talking about like everyone across this table has been like, time is the biggest resource of all of us. What are, like, this is totally not e-com growth related, but what are your productivity hacks? Like what have you seen across your team to make sure that they're ultra productive, or have you implemented some new?
Cut out breaks, no lunch.
No lunch?
No going home.
No lunch,
I'm
no
joking,
breaks,
that's
chained to your desk, okay. That's fair. I know for me, like Slack is I live and die in Slack, and I feel like, I'm lost in 30 channels, talking about 10 different topics. And so for me, it's been taking breaks from Slack and really carving out time to just do the work as opposed to just being reactive. It's really easy for us to live in this kind of reactionary instant space, but making time for me has been a big help. Is there anything that you're doing across your team to make sure you're more productive or thinking and fostering about creativity?
We share. So as opposed to just focusing on one person getting everything done for everybody, for everything, for every project, we kind of started sharing the responsibility. So not to promote Google, but the Google Suite has really been great. We're right. It's using the Excel doc or the PowerPoints and being able to just people going in there and updating things. I'm not the only person now who's updating a PowerPoint presentation. There's a different person adding images, content, etc., whatever the information is. So that's been really helpful with time because then you don't get bogged down by one project. You can actually prioritize and do 15 at once.
Yeah.
So I have two things. The first thing is related to that. What we've tried to do is do more online documents where we can create and build out and in turn cut out meetings, which are a huge time suck and seem to like really drain people a lot of times. So we'll say, well, instead of like sitting around and trying to hash this out, let's add notes. Let's like, okay, I'm going to do a version and you're going to do another version all online in your time whenever you can. And also encouraging people if they need to work remote to get something done to do that. But the other big thing is to look to all the vendor partners that we have in place now and say, where else can we leverage what they're doing to get them to help us to do things more? So our SMS vendor, like, oh, you guys have a lot of great ideas. Show me. Like, you have teams that can do it a lot quicker than we can. We don't have any resources to roll this new thing out, but it will make us money, which will make us spend more with you. Or we have a vendor who does our triggered email. And they started to do a lot of stuff on site for us as well. And so having them do the countdown clock and all the dev work that goes into that and the production work and the design work on the pop-ups for the welcome series and things like that. So really looking at our partners and saying, where can we ask for more to start doing that as well.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that's some of the best advice most people will get all day. That's stop thinking about time as a really physical resource. We look at P&Ls, most business owners, all the time, which is just monetary. Start considering time as a huge one because we have that all the time. People not wanting to look at service offerings because they don't want their bills to increase. Little tip for you: you go to most technology vendors and talk to them about you want to try some services. Can they build it into your cost structure? Most of them will agree with that because that's where. So start thinking, really the mindset of if we can justifiably get it off of our plate, what is the monetary impact of that? And figure out ways to analyze that and show it to whomever, your CFO or whoever's financial in your team. It's some of the best advice you'll get on maximizing your output.
Yeah, and our founder Toby, we showed up at the office. I work from home. I don't show up at an office, but I turned on my computer one morning and it had looked like he decided that we were going to have a meetingless day. So all of our meeting invites for Wednesdays moving forward were completely cleared. No one is allowed to have meetings on Wednesdays. So we do no meeting Wednesdays. And it's increased productivity across all business units, and also has helped to foster more communicate. Like you can have random meetups on Wednesdays as long as they're internal. But yeah, there's no meeting Wednesdays, which I really love. And every couple of months there is a refresh for those people who love those meetings on Wednesdays.
And he founded Shopify, so you all should probably listen to him.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to say that, but yeah. But the last question, it looks like we have a couple of minutes left, and I think everyone wants to go and have a bite to eat. But the last question for here, given the time of year that it is, I'd love to hear what you're doing for Black Friday. If you have any tips or tricks about how your customers are preparing. Are they planning 2 weeks, 3 weeks out? And what does the follow-up from Black Friday look like?
Yeah, so I can start with a little advice on Black Friday. This is one that we get tasked with all the time, and we release a bunch of content around how people can make the most out of Black Friday. But the biggest bit of advice I can give anybody who's in B2C and focuses on these major days is building up to Black Friday and planning for it starts January 1. Because to make the most out of these big days, you need to have that brand following, because I promise you, you're not standing out in the crowd or acquiring that many customers through many more factors than chance on those days themselves. So the way to maximize your output from Black Friday and get those unbelievable, 10x, 5x revenue figures, whatever it is that you can show off to your CFO, is start planning how you're going to get good customer retention and good open rates for your emails, good whatever it may be, all year long. So that when those days come, people will sift through to find yours because they love looking at your content. That is the absolute best way to do it. Rather than thinking that, right, if we just slap a discount tag or we do something that's going to stand out, because you'll see open rates, engagement rates go through the floor, and everybody's sales percentages go through the roof. So what that tells you is you increase that engagement rate, mathematically you should be all right.
Yeah, I feel like the Black Friday holiday postmortem is probably the most important process to go through, but a lot of people, we end up not having a lot of time to do it because we're already into 2020 planning, 2021 planning, and we're just moving forward into our spring launch. I work with a lot of clothing retailers, but I think that we just move on to the next thing, and doing a proper postmortem to understand what actually happened during those events and how we can better prepare for the future is one of my big learnings too. How about yourself?
So we plan obviously way in advance for not just Black Friday, but those few shipping days from Black Friday through till Christmas. And what we're looking at is, okay, the cost for all that traffic goes up during that time. What can we do? Where are the costs the lowest, where we can fill the funnel with people who are familiar and are getting exposed, and what's the timing, right? So that those people get through in time to make purchases when they're most likely to make purchases. So if you ever look at costs recently, you'll see that October, people stop spending money because they're saving their ad dollars for the end of the quarter. So it gets really cheap. Well, you won't have anybody in your retargeting pools throughout Google and Facebook and Pinterest or any of the places that you retarget if you haven't been filling your funnels in October when it's really cheap to do so and building that engagement. So what you said is, when it's time where people are like, I really want to spend money during this time that I know there's going to be sales, the conversion rate is really high, the intent is really high, that they've already been exposed, because our brand, let's say, takes 6 exposures before someone makes a purchase. You can't afford to have all those exposures be in November. So we started diversifying our channels early and filling the pools, the retargeting pools, really early this year.
Yeah.
So from previous companies, same. We did a lot of similar things as well. But we also pumped our unique products and elevated those in our offerings more so than during the rest of the year, or at least around the more salesy times. So, taking the planner company, for example, there's planners that we just sell, and then there's the personalized planners that you can purchase. So we would really push a lot of the marketing around the personalized planners because it's a bigger sell than just the regular stuff you can buy at Target or Walmart or online. And that really worked as well. And we started that early. So it was utilizing that September, October timeframe, post Labor Day, and then really making the push during that time frame, knowing that they'll come back Black Friday, having gotten 2 months of retargeting. from our company.
Leave me alone. I will make a purchase now.
Stop following me around. So it looks like our time is up. But thank you all for joining the panel. And thank you, DCKAP, for hosting us. We really appreciate it. I'm not sure I'm passing this over to, but yeah, thank you all for joining.
Give our panelists another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. And continue to keep the applause going for all of our speakers, yourselves, all of our sponsors. Next year, DCKAP Summit 2020, right here in Los Angeles. Once again,